Item 10.01, the school improvement plans. There was no discussion comparing last year's plans to and what they said they were going to do and this year's plan and or the results from last year's plans. And you've had verbal presentations before, some principles on some of these improvement plans, and yet there doesn't seem to ever be a follow-up. And in this case, there was no follow-up. It's just it lists, here's all these, and you have to go to the website to find out what these are. And nothing about ranking the schools or who did well or not. And it really bothers me. And you, as our taxpayer representatives, ought to start asking these questions. Thank you.
I know that you wanted to, it's been pulled, but that you had some information. We also have a public input card on this one, too.
However you'd like to proceed.
Robin Douglas, I think you had submitted the card for that one, if you would like to come forward and
Good evening, Board. And welcome, Christy Burns and Sandy Gamble. I haven't been to a school board meeting since you guys have been here, so welcome to the board. Okay, the reason that I asked to speak on this is because I looked at the school improvement plans, and I went to every school, and I pulled the information because it contains information that tells you about their attendance as well as suspensions. Okay, which for me, I'm with Lake County Anti-Bullying, and that has a lot to do with kids getting bullied and why they're out of school or why they're being suspended. Okay, now what I found is that there are 8 schools that seem to have some improvement from data of attendance and suspensions provided. Okay, so they're updating their data. Hopefully that's accurate data. Okay, what I did find that was kind of disappointing is 21 of the schools have no comparable data either from last year or from this year. So either their data is exactly the same as last year on this year's report, or there's just no information at all this year or last year. It's like that populated area disappeared from last year's report, so I can't look at what their numbers were last year, but then I go down into their report and it says, okay, well, we're going to have a targeted goal of 150, of student suspensions or whatever it is that they do. But that goal doesn't tell me anything about what the school did last year in suspensions. Another question that I had, which I kind of got answered when I started reading this, because I didn't read this when I first started, was whether the suspensions include out-of-school suspensions or just the out-of-school, or did it include the in-school suspensions? And in here it says that they're supposed to include the in-school and out-of-school suspensions. So it kind of puts it all in perspective if those are accurate, if the numbers are accurate. 10 of these schools, very disappointing. They show there are more suspensions this year, as well as a lot of them have worse attendance issues. Okay, now in their last report, they said that they were going to work on those attendance issues and those suspensions issues, but here now we're worse. And then at the bottom, if you go to the very bottom of the report on the website, it tells you, okay, what's their goal and how are they going to show that they're trying to achieve this goal? And there's supposed to be reports that they're supposed to do, where they're supposed to have group meetings, they're supposed to create a committee. Are we asking for the sign-off on the committee meetings? Are we asking them, are they actually doing what they said they were going to do? Because they're supposed to show proof that they're doing this. And I understand that this is a living document and it can be edited at any time. I just want to know, other than this, where can I find the information that I'm looking for to look at the schools to try to decide if I want to move my son to a different school and make an educated decision to put him in the best school in the district, because I have that choice now. What do I look at? Who do I go by? That's my question.
All right. Thank you for raising some questions and sharing your comments tonight.
So there were a lot of questions and details there, and the school improvement document is not the only document that we have reports on school discipline. And out of the Safe Schools Department, there are various reports. We have assessor reports. We have, in fact, Dr. Doyle's department and with Sabrina Dillon Banks and her department, they have been doing a whole analysis about suspensions, in-school suspensions, out-of-school suspensions. So we have whole report and analysis on that whole topic. But that is done at the district level, and so it is not necessarily in each individual school improvement plan, and because the whole school improvement plan is covering a bunch of unique areas for each individual school. But that doesn't mean as a district we don't have that data and have that data broken down school by school. So Dr. Doyle's sitting right behind you, and we will be happy to show you where you can access all that information. And so we have, again, all those reports that are available, and certainly want parents to have access to that. That, again, may not be all in every individual school improvement plan. So that's one piece. I do want to invite Barry Farley up to come, because I'd like him to, we've had some questions asked about what's the process, how do these go through, what's the vetting process, and I'd like Barry Farley to basically give you that information. Mm-hmm.
I think we're going to get a presentation now.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, board members, Superintendent Moxley, for the message of fairness, I want to say my UCF tie is on. Go Knights, charge on. So if you weren't here earlier in the meeting, we have to jump in because we have to fight a little harder. The document I have going along with you outlines what the school advisory committees and the school leadership saw sometime in July. I started in June and tried to cover all the bases with them. So that tells you a little bit about the process and deadlines. Most of those deadlines and timelines are dictated through the Bureau of School Improvement with Department of Education, and most of the work is done on the school improvement plans through the continuous improvement system that's online. So that's why when you see the school improvement plans, they look very similar. It all exports to a template that is based upon what they complete. But as you can see, we actually start with them beginning training in August. The draft school improvement plan for the DA schools, differentiated accountability schools, is due by August 31st. And I know it's an issue just getting the committees together and to work on those over the summer. If they can get started with that, that's a big plus. I will agree that as I'm going through the process this year, reviewing previous year's plans for success is a huge component that I intend to add. So you will get a report down the road about success of previous year's plans, of this year's plan when we get to that point. The 2015 school improvement plans are available on the district website. I do believe, I don't think we supplanted those with the 2016, so I think they're available for the evaluation and accountability website, as were this timeline. The draft for all schools is due to the BSI people in October. At that point, and that's submitted electronically, at that point we print out copies of the reports, all the school improvement plans, even for the charter schools and the contracted schools that work with us, and our staff from student services, from HR, from ESE, from Title I, they come through over a period of about 2.5 weeks and review all the plans that they touch, and we leave comments, and then we return those to the schools. They upgrade, improve, edit, and then by the end of November, the final copy is due to the regional directors for BSI, and they review them for a few weeks and then get back to us with any changes that they ask. And so the process goes back and forth until all matters are dealt with. And even then, by January 30th, I had to provide an assurances document to them that all factors of the school improvement plan had been completed. Now, that's the process. It's not my role to measure necessarily all the components of the school process, but to verify that the data is correct, certainly I'm glad to do that and to double check, and to make sure the process is completed is what our role is.
And compliant, from a compliance
And compliance.
standpoint. So when Mr. Farley was talking about to the regional directors sometime in November, that we're talking about, those are the state regional directors from the Accountability Department of Education. And then they go through them, and then they give feedback, and that's why, here we are, the first board meeting in February, when they're coming to you, because they've been through this whole vetting process to be finalized. It is a living document. And what I mean by that is that, and I think sometimes when they're there, we've had people that have been on the committee and we're looking at the balance of the SAC, and then all of a sudden folks have either moved away or they are not participating, and each SAC has bylaws that says if you've missed so many meetings, then you're removed and someone else, and you have to go through the election process, and then those are updated, and then those come to Mr. Farley. So there is points in time throughout the year that he's constantly checking the participation, the makeup, to make sure that they're balanced, they have the correct number, so forth and so on. So if you look today, they can be totally 100% in compliance, and then a week from now someone moves away or changes or doesn't meet the attendance criteria, and then they have to go through the process of getting back in line for that.
And one of the things that happens with the SACs out there is that it's often that the school, if changes are made from the draft document, let's say in September, some of the non-pertinent areas maybe don't get updated. But I have updates on SAC membership, for example, and I think I contacted 20 schools last month to update, because we get monthly minutes from every SAC. And so when we see indicators that there has been a change, we want them to contact us to update their membership list, which we run with a specialized electronic file we share back and forth with them. And that's available as well. So even the SAC membership you may see on the published document right now probably has changed in some point along the way. And if they didn't go back in specifically to change that in the document, then you may see something that's not up to date. So,
Bill, do you have a question?
I just have a couple of comments that from my time, and we've gone through the school improvement plans, and that less is more sometimes, as we had, and how we brought those about. But I want to make sure, and this is, Mrs. Douglas, to your comment, that I didn't think that discipline and suspensions were part, because we want to make sure that we are creating a safe environment, and that we don't want a target of if an administrator needs to maintain the security of their campus, and that the school improvement plan would not contain this suspension anyway.
It does when the state requires it, those pieces, depending on where they are in the differentiated accountability. There are some state requirements for some information.
and there's a bullying component required as well as of last year. So we have information on that in the SIP.
So the board did, to Mr. Mathias, your point, the board did discuss that, you say, okay, we're going to increase attendance or we're going to decrease suspension, so therefore we just don't suspend or we don't address discipline things. Totally understand that and get that. But then there are some state requirements that require the bullying requirement, because that was one of the items, and how they're measuring some of that is the reports of bullying and how the interventions that have come with that. So we couldn't just leave it out. But the question is, how are you using that data and how are you interpreting that data? If you put, it's like some other things too. If I get into a whole nother topic with evaluation and performance pay and all that kind of good stuff. It's the same kind of concept, is that if you put a whole lot of emphasis on reducing the number of suspensions, and so therefore, it's high stakes, then it's what you're talking about.
In the case of bullying, that there was some trust that incidents were being reported because administrators would they're going to reduce bullying. Well, how do we ensure the fidelity of the intent if, and I don't care who you are on this planet, if you said in your report you're going to reduce something by 10% and you get over that, you're not even getting close to it, and you're doing the right thing, you might start monkeying with the numbers. That's all.
Right. Well, and that's why I'm saying is that the law is saying we have to include a bullying component in it, and there has to be a goal to address that. I mean, that's my understanding. So the question is that, okay, you can do that and you report the data, but it doesn't mean that it's what high stakes accountability you put on it.
And we say that there's no recourse if you accurately report your numbers, and you say that we're going to have we had 150 cases last year of bullying, and we got 175 this year.
So what it does is it's a point of conversation. I don't know of a principal that has been fired because they did their, you know what I'm saying? That's what I'm talking about when you get into that kind of high stake. That's the high stakes. What are the high stakes there? But it does serve as a data point for conversation to say, okay, what is this data telling us? Okay, it's telling us that we have a higher incident of bullying reports. Well, is that because we are actually following the policy and following the law, and we're doing the fidelity of that, and we've got all these things documented? Or is it that we have a higher incidence of bullying? Because every report doesn't necessarily, it has to be acted upon in compliance with the law and the statute, and there's timelines that they have to follow. But then the disposition of that review or that investigation or whatever that report is, every one of them have to be dealt with. So they could have a very high increase in bullying reports, but that doesn't mean that they don't have a safe campus. Does that make sense? You have to look at the data reports.
Go to that dialogue so that everyone's comfortable. Because just like Mrs. Douglas, who's going to the internet and just looking at data, where is that narrative that says we're really doing a great job?
Well, the narrative is in when we have the school visits and the assessors with the principals are out and they're walking that. When our teaching and learning committee or team is out there looking at school improvement and looking at those, that's where the conversation's taking place.
But where is, again, from the parent that just merely downloads, how is she feeling?
She's not part of that dialogue, unfortunately, because that dialogue's taking place when they are in the schools and they're walking and and the SAC should be having that dialogue.
But and listen to the conversation, the public comments, that last year they had 150,
right,
and this year they had 175.
Right.
What's happening?
Right.
How are we, and it may be a good thing. It may be that it's better that we're getting these people off campus.
That conversation should be occurring at that SAC meeting at that school. When they're going through their data and the SAC should be actively engaged. That school improvement plan is the document that they're using. And that dialogue, if I'm an SAC member at XYZ school and that data point came up, I should be asking as a concerned parent of that and a member of that SAC, as a principal, I should be having that narrative. The question is that, or are we now going to say, okay, every school has to write this long narrative because, like I said, the school improvement plans became so labor intense that we had this document that was this thick, and the reporting, that's all they were doing is reporting on paperwork, and then they couldn't get to actually doing the work. So I'm hesitant to say now, do we need to have them put a whole executive summary narrative over it to explain that, or I don't know the answer. It's a tough question, but what I'm saying to this board is that conversation and that narrative needs to be occurring at each of those school SACs.
Okay, it also has to occur here because it's our job by statute to review these. So we have to be able to review these, and I have the same data that she has. So I can't.
So how would you like to proceed with that? Are you indicating you want every school improvement plan at mid-report to come before this board and 47 reports come to do that? Or do you want an executive summary? You need to tell me what you need, to have that done.
Here's what I don't know. And too often perceptions to our district are formed based on just data points without knowing the rest of the story. And that I think we're doing a disservice, particularly with open enrollment now, which was alluded to by Mrs. Douglas, that if one just goes and looks at just raw data, then it probably doesn't tell the rest of the story.
No, it
right?
never does.
And so just like we have defended, and personally we can all talk and we can all know, but at some point in time, the public wants to know. And I don't know how to share that.
I mean, my thought, and this wouldn't be something to do this second, obviously, but would be to do a principal report of the SAP or a somebody report once a meeting. I don't even know if that would get us through all of them in a
We
year.
probably need to do 5 or 6 a board meeting. And I mean, we're happy to do that. I mean, because I don't want
Maybe that's
misperceptions
too
out there, but at a meeting, you need to understand what your, how you want to proceed with that.
And it also goes back to Vance, your comments of they come up with these programs and where's the accountability and where's the action, the follow-up. And I don't want to burden us in an effort to be transparent that I think the rest of the story needs to be told. I just don't know how you do that.
And I'm lovingly saying this, okay, that what you're talking about is what we administratively do. We do that every day. That's part of our job to do that. But my job every day is not in the public every day. I mean, you're not in the office when we are dealing with personnel things, when I'm dealing with student issues, when I'm dealing with safety issues that are not part of the sunshine. That is what we do. Now, I hear the transparency, and I want to be transparent, and I also know, because I feel that if there is not a trust level or a comfort level there, then those perceptions are what drive things. And so there needs to be, how do we give you the comfort level? How do we give the public the comfort level without saying, okay, we're going to now do all the day-to-day business of the district administratively at this board table? And I don't think that's what you're asking.
That is not what I'm saying at all.
Yeah.
Because the truth is that those of us that sit up here know how hard, and we know the work done. But to the comments that were made,
Right.
that at the end of the day, just like we've worked for less is more, making sure that the fidelity of what they're doing is really true and can be accomplished. The reality is and we've spoken about discipline and bullying not being part of that evaluation, or having any weight just for data points, I
Right,
guess.
the weight.
But at the end of the day, somehow we're not. All I'm saying is that there has to be a vehicle where they feel comfortable that if bullying is up, it's because we're reporting better, or you know what I mean, or I don't know.
I was going to say, may I? So to the point of the school improvement plans, I do look at them like on my own time, but I will tell you when questions come up about them, I will talk to Dr. Moxley about them. Her and I have met before about school improvement plans. She'll pull people that I need in regards to school improvement plans. Now that doesn't answer the public question, but it certainly helps not to have 5 schools a meeting times that, and that would be what we would do, and it is the job of the principal evaluators to do that. However, we talked last month at the School Board Coalition meeting about having a dashboard page that are different measures that the districts, the schools actually say that they value and things that they perceive themselves to be doing well or to need improvement. Is there a district school improvement committee? Is there a district committee that we could put together that each school would have this dashboard, and it wouldn't just include like the test data that we provide or school suspension data. There would be points that we would come up with that would communicate to the public. They could click on that button on that school's website and see that same dashboard for every school. And I don't know we didn't talk about what those points would be, but we did talk about how this could be something that translates across the state of Florida as the choice program progresses.
And I fully support that, because I think the dashboard, and that's kind of where we were headed with the key performance indicators, because we were saying we're not putting all our weight in one test,
Right.
that there were other things that were important measures about our schools and our school district. And so that was really kind of the start of that dashboard. The question would get in, what do we want? Because you want some consistent dashboard, because then if this school did this and another school did that, and I happen to be the parent of this school and I like their dashboard better, I think we'd have to come up with a consistent dashboard, and I think that can be a powerful tool.
There is a process that I didn't mention here, and most of the DA schools are required to do a reflection at about this time of the year. I've seen about 10 of them so far, and their reflection is entered in the SIMS software as well, and I could arrange for that to be shared with the board. And if you like what you see with that, they're addressing their primary goals and how they've done up to this point this year, and it is mostly narrative with a little sprinkling of data in there. And if that's something that you like, then you can ask the superintendent if that's something that we could require of the other schools. It's a possibility. And even maybe one or two of the principals may want to brag a little and come to the school board meeting and tell you how well they did. So
it's your pleasure on how you'd like to do school improvement plans. I mean, we have been monitoring them. The schools have been working them. They have been working through their SACs. I understand the dilemma. Yes, that is a dilemma. I want to be transparent. Again, it's what you're, and each of you has a different comfort level on this topic. So again, as a board, you know, these are here coming. We have always brought these to the board to be approved. There is not a statutory requirement that requires them to be board approved, but we have always done that here. And so we want to make sure that you have a comfort, because we know that you have the requirement to look at the progress and improvement of your schools, and that is for you to do, and we want to make sure we facilitate that for you. So at this point in time, I have pulled these for tonight because I did have a request to give more time so that you as a board or a board member individually could look at those. I definitely want to honor that, but I do sense I need to get some clarity on how you'd like these to come back and in what time frame.
I like his idea. Both of them, actually. Like, let's say we have a principal that has a horrible uptick in discipline rates, but maybe there's a great reason. Maybe, you know, he's working on a new, I don't know what, you know, and there's a really great explanation, and next year it's going to plummet, and we just need to write it out. And so that principal would come to the board and say, you know, hey, like, don't. Like, yes, this number's high. Don't worry about it. I'm working on this. This is well underhand, you know. So I think that I'd like to see the overviews and potentially look at the dashboard concept. And then also my other question is, I don't think these are up to date, right? The links that we have are not.
Yeah, the links are up to date now.
They are up to date now, as of today?
As of last week, I think we finished the last of them.
Okay, then we'll meet afterwards. Okay.
So may I ask the board direction, because if we will work on these dashboards, and I won't be able to turn those around in a couple days. I mean, that's going to be a process. So how would you like to move forward with these plans that are before you? Can we, next board meeting, move forward with them? Would that give enough time? But then with the understanding that we'll put a process together, and or do you need me to bring principals in to start reviewing these before you approve them moving forward? Tell me your pleasure, and I'm happy to accommodate.
I'm okay with bringing them back next time.
I am too.
Okay, all right.
I think there are a couple issues that satisfies, and one is the length of time to review them, because certainly when you're looking at 40 some odd schools, it takes quite a bit, and I bet, you know, we probably, unfortunately, it doesn't hit our radar until we see it on board docs and then click the link, and with how many other documents there are to review. I mean, I'll confess that I spent more time looking at the schools in my own district than the rest of the county, right. But I think that would help. And I think you mentioned as well, and addressed one of my other concerns, which was about trying to make previous year comparisons for success, whether or not to know that, is this plan serious, or are they just cutting and paste what didn't work last year? You know, so I think having that kind of information and that kind of benchmarking is helpful.
And I do think it would be nice if the schools that we have on our lower schools, if we could have a presentation and a workshop. I know we've done that in the past.
We have done that.
Something that I would like to keep.
And we can continue that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And timeline-wise, I'm not comfortable with timeline. We use the whole time because I was new in the position, and I wanted to make sure that they were comfortable with the timeline, but I'd like to try to accelerate that for next year so we can get it to you. My goal this year was to get it to the board by first meeting in December, and with one meeting in December just wasn't convenient, so we waited until there were a lot more items on your agenda, obviously, to deal with it, but next year we'll get things up and moving at every step of the way earlier, we think.
Do you think there's a way that a school improvement plan could be before school?
No.
Because we're halfway through the year.
I'm just happy if they can get their SAC committee, who also, this is really their plan as much as anything, and they have to approve it, and they have budget to work some of the items in this. If I can get them complete in some form or fashion by early September, I would be thrilled at this point.
I wonder if this might rectify that, because I've certainly got the same issue. I mean, clearly they're not just now deciding what they're going to be working on.
Right.
And I recognize that this document has its own fair share of compliance pieces that go to it, but I wonder if at the beginning of the school year we might be able to get some sort of informal document that might tell us what the schools are targeting this year, what's their big challenge that they're going to be working on, and we might not get, this whole list of sub-steps that goes along with it, but just to know what.
That's my suggestion, is that when they are turned in for their initial, to start the process after, the schools have worked on it, when those come the first part of September, those immediately come in a workshop setting.
That'd be way better.
We don't have a district advisory council, do we?
Yes, we do. In fact, we met here right after the holiday. Melissa Meadows is the chair.
I haven't met them yet.
We've met 3 times this year.
3 times this year.
I was just thinking that they could, that person could come before us and give us an overview.
Thinking the dashboard too.
Or help with the dashboard.
I'm not sure I followed what person.
If the
because
district,
we have
I'm assuming there's a chair of the district advisory council.
there is, but each representative from each school is there. So which person and the person,
Don't they elect a chair amongst all of them?
They do, but the chair wouldn't know the intricate details of every school improvement plan.
They have their own agenda.
They have their own agenda, and they're talking about common, things are across SAC. So it's not. So the chair of that committee doesn't know. They know their schools as a school improvement plan, but they don't know everybody's. So they are talking about how we've refined training, some common issues that are facing all schools.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
Very good, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Farley.
Next item to discuss is 10.03, that's the calendars for fee-supported extended learning center employees.